This is episode 64, featuring one of the most amazing watercolor artists in the history of art, Alvaro Castagnet. Welcome to the PleinAir podcast from PleinAir Magazine. I'm your host, Eric Rhodes, publisher and founder of PleinAir Magazine. In the PleinAir podcast, we dive deeply into the world of outdoor painting called plein air painting. For those of you who don't know, plein air is a French term essentially meaning open air or outdoors. The French say plein, others say plain. It doesn't matter how you say it. Plein air. It's a huge movement of painters around the world going outdoors to paint, and this podcast is about that movement. The podcast is brought to you by our brand new publication, American Watercolor. Boy, we're proud of this one. With editor Kelly Kane. We're proud to have Kelly, who was the former editor of Watercolor Artist Magazine and is doing a beautiful job on this new project. She's also going to be the new editor of PleinAir Magazine. When Steve Doherty retires soon, she'll take over the reins at the PleinAir Convention. So check it out, AmericanWatercolor.net. Make sure you do .net, though. It's my desire to see more people fall in love with plein air painting, and you can help by sharing this podcast with your friends on social media or email or smoke signals. That's okay. I hope you'll subscribe on iTunes so it comes to you every week. And, of course, we'd love you to go to iTunes and give a comment or a rating. And if you have feedback for me or interview requests, email me, eric@pleinairmagazine.com. This interview is brought to you by the PleinAir Convention, which is going to be going on in Santa Fe this April. There still should be a couple seats remaining, but not many, believe me. It's pretty crazy. Last year we had about 1,000 people. This year a little bit more, maybe a lot more. And everybody left a better painter. We had a lot of people who listened to the podcast, went to the convention, and learned how to paint. So that's pretty cool. If that's you, we welcome you. We have plenty of places to learn to paint. You want to take the Basics of Plein Air course, which is a pre-convention workshop. We also have a Kevin McPherson Plein Air workshop in advance, and then about 80 instructors who are going to work with you outdoors and teach you indoors. Big expo hall, lots of things going on. That's at pleinairconvention.com. Let's get right to our interview with Alvaro Castagnet. Well, we're honored to have Alvaro Castagnet on with us, and right now you're in Melbourne, Australia. Is that right?
Yes, I am, Eric.
And it's summertime there?
Yes, we are enjoying a lovely summertime here, even though the temperatures are in Celsius are not that hot, which is actually quite good for me because I do not enjoy the heat that much. Yes, having a great time here in Melbourne.
And I understand you have a couple of sons there in Melbourne, is that right?
Yes, that's right. Our two sons were born here. And so they are going to uni here in Melbourne, Australia. And so we come to visit them maybe twice a year if we can. Yes.
So I think we're going to ask you a lot of questions about your career and how this all began. And so why don't we start there? You were not born in Australia. You were born in
Montevideo. Montevideo is the capital city of Uruguay.
Uh-huh.
And my parents migrated from Europe in early 20th centuries and settled in Montevideo. And I was born there. I did all my schools and secondary schools and art school back in Montevideo in the 80s.
And so when was it that you first discovered that you were interested in art?
When it's vocational, like in my case, you find out in the early stages of your life. I remember going to kindergarten. So imagine how many years ago was that. And I was very good at drawing. I love drawing, and I love pencils and erasers and paper that I can draw. I always gravitate towards these sort of materials and way of expressing oneself. But as far as I remember from kindergarten, then evolve along, every year, even in primary, secondary school, I was all the time drawing and painting. My father put me in art school at the age of 12. and it was always with me. It's part of the way I am. I always gravitate towards painting and drawing, and as far as I remember.
So, what was art school like back then? What was the agenda? How did they teach?
Well, look, I remember I was going to when I was 12. I was finishing primary school, and my school time was until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I remember rushing back home and changing and going to the art school. At that time was the syllabus or the program that I was following was portraiture and dealing with different mediums like acrylics, oils, also pencil drawing. And for me, it was just, despite the learning process, was expressing myself in one thing that I was since my early years of my life. I was always gravitating towards painting and drawing. So for me, it was just like having fun. I said to you that I was going to art school, but for me, it wasn't. And I remember clearly, it wasn't like going to art school. I was going to have fun and paint and drawing. So basically, that was what I was doing at that time. Then, as I said to you before, experimenting with different mediums and also color pencils in making portraits. I remember I dedicated like 6 months of the year in making portraits in color pencil first, and because I was keen to that, we can choose whatever we wanted to explore and experiment, and I always, portraiture, and it was always part of my inclination in at that time.
That raises an interesting question because there's oftentimes debate about whether becoming an artist is instinctual, natural talent, or if it's something that's developed. You obviously were drawing at a very young age. Do you think you were born with natural talent, or was it because you were doing a lot of drawing and copying of things? What do you think?
No. But yes, I don't. I am a believer that the artists that succeed are the ones that they were born with that ability naturally. It's given to us. We are not even responsible for it. I do believe in that type of artists, and eventually those are the ones that break it through, through the life and experimenting, painting and drawing in the long run. I don't think, I've heard and I read before plenty of times, that art can be taught, and I don't think so. I mean, it can be taught up to a certain level, but what is indispensable in the life of an artist is actually born with that desire, naturally. We just feel it unconsciously that we like to do things like this. You see what I mean? So I don't think that I got all of a sudden I realized that I would like to be an artist because I was close to brushes and canvases and all that sort of things. That is one aspect of it. It can be pursued, and you can be competent up to a certain degree. But I think, as I said to you before, the people who really makes it in the art field are the ones that my opinion can be challenged, and I'm not saying that I am the owner of the truth. But I do believe in that. I do believe that you come to Earth, or you were born with that ability naturally. We are not responsible for it. Maybe it's a bit selfish on my side to put myself as an example. I don't believe, I'm not trying to put myself like I am an amazing artist that got that plus given by God, and so I become an artist. No, I don't want. I put myself out of the example, but I do believe, as I said to you before, and I'm repeating myself again, that people who really have the big chance to make it through in the arts are the ones that they're born with this ability, and that ability manifests itself in the early years of the kid's life. Naturally and unconsciously, they are not aware. They suddenly come to you, and you like to draw, or you like to paint, or you like, I don't believe that anything you make it rational and pushed by rationality, thinking, well, now I would love to become an artist. I don't think that happens, you know. And also when the idea of becoming an artist is a bit dubious, like saying, I think I will be good at that. So I consequently I follow that desire of making myself an artist. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in expressions of the arts. It can be driven by logic, mind, and and a desire of pretending to become an artist. An artist, a true one, manifests alone, naturally, through unconscious, perhaps venues that all of a sudden become reality within you. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Eric,
Well, you're going to break a lot of hearts because there are a lot of people out there who have, at some point in their life, realized that they had interests and were hoping to become proficient or hopefully very, very strong at learning and growing into it. But you don't feel like they could ever get to the same kind of a level as someone who's.
I do believe with look. Plenty of people, they say sometimes 90% hard work and 10% talent. Maybe I could say that myself. The only thing I was trying to say here, of course, if you put a big effort, plenty of things can be achieved in life. You know, I'm not trying to or pretending for those willing to be artists to say, listen, don't follow this career, because if you weren't born with this desire naturally, you cannot make it. I simply making a statement that says that you are better off equipped. It's a great plus if you don't become an artist by just thinking to become an artist. It's just happen alone. You see what I mean? I do believe in that. Maybe I'm talking about my own self experience in life, which actually is a natural way to manifesting things. But you may have examples of many other people that simply all of a sudden they want to become an artist and they become very competitive. And I don't know. Well,
I'm sure it could be debated on and off all day long, but we don't need to do that right now.
Sure.
So I'm curious about what happened after art school. Did you immediately go into a career of art?
No, I went to secondary school. My home was always a bit of a conflict of interest because my dad was a man that enjoyed arts a lot. He was a huge connoisseur of classical music, natural history, animals, and he likes painting and art. So my home was my father always wanted me to put in art schools and follow my desires in life, whether my mother was a professional lady and she didn't want me to become just simply go in art school full time. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. My mother wanted me to go to university and become some more follow some more orthodox career in life, not painting. So I hope was always a bit of a conflict of interest between my mom and my dad for my future. But I remember one thing that my father, that passed away a few years ago, he told me, but it's a simple sentence, but it's full of philosophical point about my life, which actually I put that in practice every day of my life. It is, you follow your dreams. You in life, you don't do things against will. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You have to do what you feel you are not just capable, but what is a very inner desire of of expressing and doing something in particular in life. And my father always used to say that to me. So that was one of the things that I decided to follow my dreams, to go to art school. And I was in order to satisfy the needs of my family, I was going to secondary school and tertiary studies. That I never finished anything in university, but I started. And but on the same token, I was painting. So obviously, when I went into tertiary studies, I was at the age of 19, 20 years of age back in South America and Uruguay. And at that time, I was strongly gravitating towards painting. I wasn't a good student at the end. I was very taken by the desire of mastering a medium. I was also practicing lots of different styles. I was using charcoal a lot, and I was also doing oils and watercolors. But that was really myself. And the biggest turning point in my life was that at the age of 22, 23 years of age, I get to know, meet an Australian lady that was traveling younger. I was also young at that time, obviously. And she was traveling with a friend, and she invited me to come to Australia. And it was one of those things that, happens to all of us to become attracted by and have love affairs when you are so young. And I follow her back to Australia, Melbourne. And so was actually, I come with all my knowledge and practicing and studies in arts, obviously. But when I came to Australia, Melbourne, I find out a totally different world, in particular in watercolor. This country is an as you know well, it's an British colony. It's a young country, but a very wealthy. And I remember Melbourne, where I came to live, it was the home for watercolors. And I remember that in the early stages of my life, even when I did that course when I was 12, I was also painting plenty of watercolors. So watercolor was my first love affair when we come to talk about paintings and mediums. And so I came to Melbourne, and Melbourne was the watercolor at that time. When I came in the late 80s, it was the flavor of the month. If you paint watercolors and if you do some competitive watercolors here in Melbourne, you sell, you win prizes. People were very keen to in watercolor. So I think that was an extremely important point in my career, coming to Australia, coming to an Anglo ascendancy country, and because of the English School of Watercolor was always one of the best ones in the world. And so I grew up a lot being here in Melbourne, Australia, where I live permanently here for more than 20 years.
And what are your thoughts about watercolor today? Obviously, that's what you do, but is it, you hear a lot of discussion about galleries have trouble selling watercolors, that watercolor is a less stable medium and so on. And I don't necessarily believe any of that, but I'm curious what your thoughts are.
No, I think that watercolors is becoming extremely popular around the world. I feel that in the last 20 years, because of all the promotion that the medium has and all the plenty of great watercolor painters exhibiting their work, now communication is totally different, transportation is totally different, everything is very fast. And I think watercolor is going to enrich in every corner of the earth. So I'm pretty sure of what I'm saying. I've traveled the world, and everywhere I go, watercolor is becoming more and more popular. The videos, the DVDs, people painting on site and showing that exercise an amazing influence of people willing to pursuing and practicing this medium. With respect of galleries, is one of the things that happens in watercolor is that many people are practicing the medium in a bit more in too traditional way. One of the things that is needed in order to put watercolors into a higher level is also having far more modern contemporary visions of the medium, exploiting it to the fullest of the virtues and weaknesses of the medium, exploiting them, but having a vision that capture the essence of life. When we get a big array of watercolor artists that are able to express more contemporary vision of the medium, I'm pretty sure that then watercolors will conquer higher plateaus of showing off, like in galleries, on museums. We have to realize also that the watercolor medium is painted on 100% cotton paper. There is no wood filament any longer in the quality of the paper in watercolor. The pigments are all perennials. Colors like a alizarin crimson, it used to be fugitive. We have a perennial alizarin crimson, and this sort of concept happens in every other color in the medium. I buy my paper in big rolls. I paint, 2 meters painting. I am pretty sure that in the short time, watercolor in the hands of terrific artists that are emerging constantly, it will come up into one of the most competent mediums. I'm pretty sure.
So what is your best advice to people who are either wanting to take on watercolor painting or painting in watercolor, and you want to see them get to this level where the appreciation is higher? What would you recommend to them?
What is important is a couple of things. Obviously, you need a great deal of practice. Watercolor is a very elusive medium. So one of the things that we need to conquer is art quality, meaning expressing ourselves with a magnificent array of brushstrokes. Being aware of having a good idea about color scheme, how to blend and break in hues. And I think one of the most important things to elevate the desire of people and contemplation of this magnificent medium, it is actually having more contemporary visions of what you want to paint. I mean, I think that, as I said to you before, the quality of the paper, the quality of the pigment, the brushes we have at the reach of our hand to buy and use them and exploit them, they are second to none. And the paper, we can paint in any size we want. So one thing that is indispensable in associating all that quality of materials we have nowadays is having people who has new vision. It's important to have a new vision, not paint illustrations, and do not simply paint with watercolors. In order to make the watercolor stands up, and I think we are on that way in the future, is actually with having artists that are extremely complementary. Part of what we got is artists who, instead of painting with watercolors, they paint not only our proper watercolor painting, plus also having the ability to inject and inflict, into the painting a great deal of mood. Come to earth, let's say, with new visions. Let's don't paint the same predictable paintings. And I think one of the things that is holding on the medium and developing a little slower lately is the fact that plenty of people just simply paint illustrations. We need to be aware that an extremely important part, if not the most important part in painting watercolor, is actually capturing mood. Don't be, capturing the essence of life, exploiting to the medium to the maximum advantage of it, to the maximum exposure of it. That is our quality, is what I was referring before, which is essential, is the technical side of it. When I carry on workshops and things like this, obviously you need to teach them, the people that ability and aiming high as far as the art quality, meaning your calligraphy, the way you blend colors, your vision about color blending, your palette, associating a special palette according to the painting you're willing to paint. What is the message you are giving away? All the things are primordial in order to elevate the appetite of the audience for watercolors. It's not just simply transparency and having the great materials we count nowadays. As a matter of fact, maybe if I have to put in a mechanical or in numbers, maybe that is 10%. The 90% is the vision, and we need young people with a far more profound vision in the medium to exploit this brilliant but then elusive medium into a much higher plateau. I don't know whether do you get me? You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, absolutely, I get you. So if you're sitting down to do a painting, whether you're painting from plein air or a photograph, are you painting that picture and that mood and that contemporary
Absolutely.
sensibility in your head prior to laying down any paint?
Absolutely. My main aim is actually, I know that especially the way that I do paint, executing a painting for me is it's not a hint of vanity at all, but it's the truth. It's just a matter of an hour or 2 hours. I mean, making a watercolor painting I can do it very fast. My main concern and my totally full-on dedication before I do the painting is having a reaction, having a vision, trying to make sure myself what is the thing that I like to capture, what is the essence of certain corner of Melbourne that I want to capture. You know what I mean? I'm not paying attention into the literal picture that I got in front of my eyes. I'm trying to go well beyond that. For me, that is the only way I can go. If I really want to make a painting that, we artists, we are very selfish because the main thing is we try to satisfy ourselves. When we paint for the sake of painting. We paint for the sheer pleasure of painting, but without counting with the audience. We paint of ourselves. My main concern is actually see how deep I can go into the subject. You see what I mean? How do I interpret it? I mean, I dislike very much indeed, and that's something that I like to say to all the world of watercolorists, and I hope my message come across, that this is essential. We are just not buying the tubes of watercolors, the paper and the great brushes to simply make a statement that resemble reality, a recreational kind of painting, as the word says. It's not recreated, it's already created. We watercolorists, and this is probably a message for all artists, despite the medium, and it's a humble message. I mean, I'm not saying that I got the truth, but the thing is, if we want to elevate, once again, the watercolor medium into a much competent and more expressive way, we have to have a vision. We have to have an interpretation. We have to go very deep into the subject. And beyond the literal aspect of it, what we need to do, otherwise we are not really making a painting, is actually capturing mood, capturing the ambience. If the example I was giving you away, Eric, before, if I want to paint the corner of Melbourne, for me, I have to walk through the corner of Melbourne. I have to smell it. I have to touch it. I have to sit down and contemplate it for a while until I get the idea, what is the thing I want to say? You know what otherwise, we treat the subject totally superficially. You know what I mean? And the other contradictorial thing is there are lots of people, and I would say also the majority of people, they applaud that type of painting, the one that we treat superficially, because people succumb to instant little prettiness and beauty, and that sort of reaction is always misleading people who are embarking themselves into the art. You know what I mean? Art is not recreate. Art is getting an inspiration perhaps from the outside world, but immediately you have to look inward. If we want to make watercolor, well, I say this like 20 times already, but if you really want to make, if we want to make it into something special and being recognized by the people, and the painting we do resisting the test of times, it is essential that we look inward. You know what I mean? And we do something from the heart. I know that this, or with feelings. I mean, you probably, Eric, you've heard so many times before the word feelings and painting from the heart. You know what I mean? Because it has been, the word feeling, it has been prostituted in music and poetry and everything we heard. Um, um, Sorry, I got something. But I don't think okay. Feelings. Well, it's the most applicable word in art. And we only have a chance to paint with feelings. That's all. And one of the things also was a very important part in my career was painting outdoors. Plein air painting for me is I'm sorry, you give me a question that it takes only 10 seconds, and my answer, it takes 10 minutes. That that dichotomy of times is it make me think that maybe you have something to ask me, and I better stop. But just before I go into, I'll give a chance to ask me whatever you want to ask me, Eric. Plein air painting, it is. I have to finish all this by saying it's essential. In my life was a turning point. So much so that I paint much, much better on site if I compare the two of painting in the studio, where you are in control of the weather, you're in control, you are alone, nobody bothers you, you know what I mean? You can have a cup of coffee or a drink and listen to your best music. I mean, see, if I compare that situation, myself creating a painting out of in that environment versus painting on the outdoors, where you got all the noises from the bus and the people walking, they staying behind you and they look what you're doing or they ask you things. However, the outcome of coming outdoors is 100 times better than painting in the studio. And then we go back to one of the things I was saying is first-hand information, exploiting the artist's reaction. You know what I mean? The artist, when he paints outside, he's on fire. He's on fire. You know what I mean?
Well, you talked about exploding the watercolor movement with contemporary sensibilities and the sense of feeling. But I think one of the things that I've noticed is that there are not as many plein air watercolorists as there are watercolorists. There are not as many, you see a lot of oil painters moving into plein air, but you don't see as many watercolorists. We of course have watercolor track at the convention. We get a lot of watercolorists who do plein air, but we hear from so many who are not. And I think that just like it happened with oil painting for a lot of people, that's where the explosion takes place, is that sense of being in the vibe of the place, the emotion of the place, the feel, the rain, the sunshine, whatever it happens to be. It's giving you so much more input than you can possibly get from looking at a photographic resource.
Absolutely, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. But then plenty of those comments, it happens to people that maybe take painting in another time of their life, or they come from different walks of life, and they suddenly start painting. They always gravitate to paint indoors.
Yeah.
But it's fundamental. Is very, very important for artists to paint outdoors. And also, coming back to what you were saying before, that you've seen or you are aware that most of the artists that paint outdoors they do paint in oil. I've got to say that I got lots of, not just friends, people that have been observing and people who paint watercolors. They paint outdoors a lot. And I'm not saying here in Australia. I'm saying also overseas. As you know, I go everywhere, China, Europe, whatever, Asia. Watercolor has the immense ability of, it's easy to transport, it does not smell, it dries instantly, so and nowadays, having and knowing that if we have is a perennial pigment and can last forever, I think the association of all these pluses makes watercolor the most magnificent medium to exploit on the outdoors. I mean, it's, as I said, easy to transport,
Yeah.
does not smell, dries
Oh,
off.
it's magnificent. And as a matter of fact, I have started carrying watercolors with me because it's so difficult for me in some cases to travel with oil or to have to look for turpentine or Gamsol or something. And so it's much easier. Um,
It's much, yeah.
but I also think, and I'll probably get shot by this, but I also think that in some ways watercolor is the hardest to learn because to me, looking and studying watercolor and trying to master it myself, to me, you have to think backwards. You have to think about the final steps at the very end of the painting because, in oil painting, if I want to just change something and lay in some white, I just lay in some white. But you really have to anticipate that in advance in watercolor.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Well, yes, it's like playing chess a bit. You're always painting, thinking two or three steps ahead. Yeah, but let me tell you, yes, the difference between the king of all medium, as I always say, being oil, because I think it's the king of all medium. Um, uh, and we watercolors, we paint from light to dark. So that's why I'm saying that, and also echoing a little bit what you were saying before, we have to see in our mind's eye the end result where we want to go. So consequently, we paint in a tonal range that will take us to the end result in watercolor. As a matter of fact, I've got to say between brackets that I am a watercolor painter that paint from light to dark, plus also from dark to light. I don't. Sometimes I start like watercolors. I go beyond watercolors, because maybe I can apply 3, 4 washes, 10 washes in somewhere in the painting. But then what I'm always trying to do is coming back to watercolors at the end. So my style is it's too personal and okay, but this is about watercolor. But what I have to say about oil medium is not that easy. I mean, I remember when I was painting oils. Look, you have to have both mediums are very hard, and some people say no, oils are easier because you can start on black and go into medium tones and then the highlights or vice versa. Oils is very versatile in that aspect. With the watercolor, you have to follow that's systematically the light to dark type of approach. But talking about oils, not only they are the kings of the medium, you can paint on any surface, you can paint any size you want. They are all perennial. You don't need to put a glass on top to protect it. That makes oils the best. But also, I have to say that oils are extremely difficult, are not easy. If you want to make a really competent oil, and it's not easy. They are not easy. You have to pick. I do love oils that they are done with single brush strokes that you can see the head of the brush in the stroke. I love oils that you carry on an impasto butter kind of pigmentation and you display it in the one hit, one go without getting dirty. Now, I think that they are both beautiful mediums.
Who are the artists in watercolor or oil from the past who have most inspired you?
Well, one of the it wasn't actually an American painter. Well, you will know it very well. Andrew Wyeth. When I was much younger, um, that was um a watercolorist, let's say an American watercolorist, that he always caught my attention a great deal because coming from a family of illustrators, he has an immense ability to bypass illustration and creating a watercolor that everything was obvious. However, Andrew Wyeth's watercolors, they always carry on a great deal of feelings. And let me tell you, that's a good example that illustrates very nicely what I was trying to say early on in this dialogue I'm having with you, Eric. That's a good example because Andrew Wyeth paint predictable paintings in a way, but if you look at all his work, they all have mood, they all have ambience, and I think that observation of his work, it was always and sharing this his philosophical view about art, it was always within me. You know what I mean? When I go outdoors, I can always make something that resembles the reality that I'm painting. But Andrew Wyeth's philosophy of life also manifests in myself. You know, if I'm going to paint something, I better get something moody and capture the essence of whatever I'm painting. And once again, Andrew Wyeth was a master in that aspect. He bypasses illustration. And even though his paintings were predictable, he's a master. And why he's a master? Because when you look at his paintings, they are full of mood. And this is a message. Once again, I'm saying to you, Eric, I don't have the truth. It's simply my message. That is where all the world of artists that may listen to this dialogue I'm maintaining with you should be aware of this. You know, when you paint, you are here to improve what you see. You're here, the only mission of an artist is improving what they are looking at. And the only way we can improve what we are looking at is by inflicting feelings. We human, we have that ability of thinking in abstraction and being imaginative. You see what I mean? Yeah. And I do consider that indispensable, essential. If you don't inflict feelings in your painting, mood, ambience, and the kind of feeling that I'm referring to is not just little flowers on a balcony. No. The propensity of a fight, maybe. The mystery of life, whatever. An artist has to capture any facet of the human being array of feelings. You see what I mean? A painting, it doesn't need to be pretty. Or why simply painting ducks on a pond? Painting has to be grabbing and exploiting for maximum impact a facet of the human beings. And any kind of feeling, the moment if you capture it and project it well in your canvas or in your paper, that is when a painting is done. Until that, we are simply exercising. We are simply entertaining.
Simply illustrating.
Absolutely, illustrating. People think, no, I come to you because I want to get technique. And yes, fair enough, you need to get technique first. It's the first level. But then once you get good technique, and that's what when early on in this dialogue that I'm having with you, Eric, I've said to you, art quality. But once, which is the essentially how you express yourself, your calligraphy and your ability to mix colors and expressing them, searching for mood and whatever. But once you get that technique, you are so thirsty for it, is only 10%. So what are you going to do with that technique? What is the thing you're trying to say? What message are you giving away? What, you're painting prettiness? You're painting little ducks on a pond? Or you're painting, I'm not saying that it's a bad subject, but or little flowers casting shadows in a European wall with smooth diagonal lines. They are not painting. They are simply entertaining. Or painting Venice. A gondola in a canal, pretty canal with lovely light on the water. It has been done, we have to understand. Until we don't understand this message, we will never be painting quite well. I mean, a canal in Venice with pretty colors on the water has been done thousands of times. And you get sick of prettiness. Painting is not prettiness. As a matter of fact, and this I take responsibility of what I'm saying. Obviously, I take responsibility for everything I've been saying. But prettiness equal bad. An artist has to paint mood. If you're gonna paint, I'm not saying that paint flowers. No, it's a great subject because they are not bad subjects. You can paint flowers. You can paint a canal in Venice. You can paint ducks on a pond. But if you're gonna do that subject, let me tell you one thing. You better give me a painting that is full of mood. Because if you're going to paint the canal in Venice and you simply add up another canal in Venice, like I've seen thousands of them, with the same kind of prettiness and recreational aspect of it, look, I've got no room for that. No, I cannot see that anymore. An artist, a true artist, is another thing. A true artist is capturing the essence of life. And as I said to you before, is capturing the essence of life in all kinds of feelings. Because art doesn't need to be just simply festivities and happiness. The human being and humanity go through all kinds of different feelings. Pain, pleasure, love, fear, whatever, all that had to be captured by the eyes of an astute painter.
How do you teach that?
No, that you have to. The only thing you can teach that is just sharing the concept and pretending that the people. I was going to say buy that concept. No, buy is not the right word to use for it. And pretend that people share that thought of you. Once we all share and we do agree in this aspect, then we are on the same boat, and we simply have to work for it. The condiment, essentially the most important condiment in this is actually painting. And painting in a situation or an state that the artist show tranquility and smiling as the artist is painting, but deep inside there is a great deal of action and dynamics within himself. You know what I mean? An artist has to be quiet, tranquil, enjoy life. And within himself, deep inside, he's on fire. And I do think that's a true artist. You know what I mean? When contemplation in a state of peace and love, and deep inside, being on fire about the subject. You know what I mean? I don't know whether you yes, and how to teach that. Nobody taught me that. It's simply an appreciation of life and the willingness of developing my work. And as I said to you, just if you, Eric, you think, well, Alvaro, I think you're right. I've been thinking the same thing all along. And well, then you and I, we're in the same boat. And the only thing we've got to do is simply paint and paint and paint and paint.
Yeah. So you're going to be on stage at the PleinAir Convention. What are you going to do? Do you have any idea?
Stage, no, I love to do a demo. I love to, as I'm talking to you, about the painting that I'm doing, saying all these sort of things I'm saying to you, as I'm doing the painting. I think that is the best package, let's say, that I can deliver, and taking the best of that opportunity to talk to people as I'm doing the painting and talking precisely all these sort of things as I'm doing the painting.
Have you painted in Santa Fe before?
Yes. Yes, I did.
Okay.
In 2013, I think it was. 2012, maybe around that time, I was in Santa Fe painting for a week.
Well, it's going to be wonderful having you there, and we're really looking forward to that. So let me ask you a question, totally off topic a little bit. You have become known as one of the very top tier watercolor artists, one of the top artists in the world, not just watercolor. And do you have any career advice that you can pass on to people that goes beyond, obviously you have to master painting. You have to get really brilliant at painting. But there are people that you and I both know who are brilliant painters who are unrecognized. How did you get to be so big, so popular, so important in the art world?
Well, there are a couple of things. One of the main things is aiming high, and as I said to you all along, is setting up your mind and capturing a feel of the subject. Give me something, have a vision that is yours and different. That automatically will put you in another pedestal. And another very important thing is being yourself. Show your fingerprint. It's natural that all young artists or whatever age they are, the moment they start painting, they follow someone else. And I do applaud that and I support that. You need to follow a master. But the true ones are the ones that they love themselves. You know what I mean? As a person, it's an egocentric concept, but it's the truth. If you love yourself, you like to become you. And it's essential that in art you show your own fingerprint. You've got to be yourself. And I think the marriage of finding how you are and how you feel inside and how you react, and in association with having your own vision, that it is the truest way and the fastest way to become a different one and being appreciated by the biggest audience. Knowing that you do that, not for satisfying the need of the audience. The audience is always secondary. You have to be only thinking about yourself. And an artist only paint for self-indulgence. If you're going to think, if I put this red, I do it because I increase the chances of selling the painting. From the moment, philosophically, you think that way, you are taking the wrong path in art. An artist paint for themselves. I paint for my own happiness and sake of painting. And my most important thing is finding exactly how I am, expressing it in the painting, and go deep into the subject and have my own vision of it. That between all the things that I'm saying to you is the base of becoming a world-class artist. You see what I mean? It resides in these fundamentals.
Well, you have taught me so much today in this brief period of time. I wish we had more time. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share with our audience?
No, just that I do love all the people who succumb to arts, and I do appreciate the fact that they support my art. First of all, I'd like to say thank to all that audience. And the last message is, as I said plenty of time before, is just, even though I've been saying all these concepts and things before, when you come to confront a white paper, just be happy. Don't paint with fear. Just paint with a smile on your face, and that is essential. I know it's a simple sentence, but it's the truth. Paint with no fear. Forget about ego. Egocentrism is one of the greatest poisoning aspect of human beings. To have a big ego. We all have an ego. It's a pity that we do have it. And the thing is, if we don't have an ego, and then when we go and paint, we just simply, if we don't have the ego, we paint for the sake of painting. We paint for happiness and love. And then I'll tell you something that will manifest in the paint. And painting plein air, essentially, is also, as I said to you, Eric, before, is a turning point in every artist's career.
Fabulous. Thank you so much.
Thank you. No, it was a pleasure talking to you. And I'm looking forward to meet you in the short time.
Yes, we'll see you in Santa Fe. Wow, this guy's amazing. Thank you to Alvaro. What a great what a brilliant painter. I mean, it's just, nobody can make watercolor sing quite like he does. It's just beautiful. Today's podcast was sponsored by the PleinAir Convention. Alvaro will be there. Today's podcast was sponsored by the PleinAir Convention. Alvaro will be there teaching in Santa Fe, and along with many, many others. You can learn more at PleinAirConvention.com. It's also brought to you by our new pub, American Watercolor, with Kelly Kane, the editor. Check it out, AmericanWatercolor.net. Well, the plein air movement continues to be red hot, which may be why PleinAir Magazine remains the top-selling representational art magazine sold nationwide at Barnes & Noble. Drop by, pick one up. Get a bi-monthly subscription of your own that comes in the mail or by digital at about half the price of the newsstand, just by going to PleinAirMagazine.com. You can also find it at our OutdoorPainter.com. Well, this is always fun. I love doing this. So let's do it again sometime, like next week, and we'll see you then. My name is Eric Rhodes, and I'm the publisher and founder of PleinAir Magazine. Nice to meet you if we haven't met. Remember, it's a big world out there. Go paint it. We'll see you.